Well, everyone, it's just turned 12 o'clock, so we'll make a start because time is precious on these webinars. So Steve Outram, Director of Central Recording Achievement, gives me tremendous pleasure.
You are funny.
Thank you, Luke. To welcome Luke Millard and Leslie Taylor from Birmingham City. Everybody needs to know that Luke and I have known each other for a long time, and he will be quite rude to me, no doubt, during the proceedings over the next 60 minutes, but that's fine. So Luke and Leslie, without further ado, the floor is yours, and you're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. And I won't deliberately be rude to you. I may be rude about you, but I won't deliberately be rude to you. Thank you very much for everybody for attending today. And myself and my colleague Leslie Taylor is here. As you see, we are only sharing one headset, so at some point there'll be the traditional royal passing over of the headset, and we look forward to that. But here we're here to talk to you about an initiative we've had here called Graduate Plus. And the reason we're talking to you, I suppose, is because Steve's been here and talked to us about what we were doing and seemed to think it was, well, hopefully good practice, or at least something to share with the sector, shall we say. Because this is very much work in progress. This is very much, we're seeking to talk to others, learn internally from staff and from students at the university, but also learn from others around the sector about what we're doing and what we're seeking to achieve, I suppose. So I'll start off with a very brief introduction. I'm sure most of you perhaps know, but Birmingham City University is a city centre based university in Birmingham, not surprisingly, about 24,000 students spread across 4 faculties which focus on arts, design and media, computing, engineering and built environment, business, law and social sciences, and health education. So that's a sort of the type of university that we are, or what we look like, should I say. We have a very multicultural student population, which really reflects the nature of what we do in Birmingham. We know that, for example, we were involved in the NUS commuter student research recently, so we know, for example, that 71% of our undergraduate population come from Birmingham and the Black Country, so they're local students. They're local to us here, and that puts, I suppose, creates some difficulties, but also raises some potential opportunities for the way in which we work. We're here, as I say, to talk to you really about Graduate Plus, and myself and Leslie. Leslie is the program manager, so she's going to talk to you about how it's really operating and what it's seeking to do. I'm gonna start off with what we did and why we built it, and what we as an institution, I suppose, were seeking to achieve. So he says, frantically trying to work out why the slide's not moving on. There we go, that should work. There we are, lovely. Okay, so we have if after this webinar you want to go and see, have a closer look at the Graduate Plus website. This slide just highlights what the website looks like and gives you the web address at the top. No, in fact, and then there you are, and so that'll take you in, and that's what it looks like. Okay. And what have I done now? I'm very sorry, folks. Here we are. Let's go back. As you can see, I'm relatively new to this, so I'm trying to work out what's going on. There we are. Okay. So what we're about 2 years ago, we were tasked by the Pro-Vice Chancellor and Deputy Vice Chancellor at the time as a university to start to think about developing an employability program for the university, it was couched as. And I think this was because, as many people in senior positions in universities do, they go around places and they see what other people are doing and think, oh, we should have one of those. And that particular Pro-Vice Chancellor, I can talk about this now, currently isn't now at the university, has moved on elsewhere, but the idea she had was around creating an extracurricular awards program for the university. And actually I remember at a time as this request came in, I spoke to somebody called Steve Outram, and I said, where are the best places in the country doing this type of thing? And he gave me a list of a few places, and they were doing absolutely fantastic work, and some really interesting awards were being developed. But every time I seemed to talk to these folks at various places, they had what I would say would be called maybe high achiever awards. Things that were quite selective in the way they were designed, and also awards that really sought to focus on probably those people who didn't really need that support, he could say. Now, what I was charged with was producing and leading a team that might develop a university-wide initiative, something whereby we would get the mass of students participating rather than I'd say 200 or 300 students who actually already had probably the skills. And also it related to the nature of our student population. As I say, we were thinking about actually, if we've got this wide range of local students coming from local backgrounds, maybe with given the nature of Birmingham City University, which is, as you say, is probably described as a widening participation university, how do we help get a mass of students to develop that sort of social capital and the confidence and belief, I suppose, to take themselves out into the market? So we started, so this team was pulled together with volunteers from across the faculties to, as I say, develop this continuing professional development program, as it was called at the time. And in particular, what we were thinking about was developing those, as this slide says, developing those skills within students that they may not find within their programs, perhaps. And certainly also looking at the things that they were already currently doing. So, for example, I know that from surveys such as the UK Engagement Survey here, that 64% of our students work alongside their studies. How as a university might we recognise the skills and development opportunities that are taking place through students actually organising an effect? I suppose you could describe them as organising their own placements. So could we sort of reflect how that might work? And as I say, we're currently in that sort of the work in progress, and we are continuing to learn and develop. Okay. So at the same time as we were doing this, obviously the university, not obviously, but the university was also undertaking another exercise looking at its graduate attributes. What should every graduate from this university leave with? We therefore recognised these, and as these were developed, we built them into our programme. And I don't expect that these graduate attributes, or employability attributes as they're called here, would be new to anybody in the sector. I would suspect that the vast majority of universities has fairly similar list of attributes, but they actually seem to fit what we were trying to do here, and so we looked therefore at how we might include those within what we were trying to do. Now, as we were trying to do it and create this beast, or whatever it was going to be, whatever it was going to look like, we had to bring along an interesting cohort in this developmental group, some of which were academics, some of whom were researchers, some of whom were professional services staff, a wide range. And so actually we started, therefore, to convince this myriad of bunch of what we were trying to do, we started to think about what other frameworks could we use, could we build around. And one of the things, my area of work seemed to focus over the last few years was been around the first year experience and students in transition. And so we started to think about so I started pulling some of those models, and one of the ones I continue to draw upon is this one from Lizio, which seemed to actually relate to what we were trying to do. If we were bringing students into a new framework called Graduate Plus, which is trying to develop your set of skills in various ways, how could we utilize this to not only help you develop those, but also perhaps meet some of our own institutional goals? So can we work with you, and can the program develop this sense of connectedness? There's lots of stuff in the sector at the moment about belonging, isn't there? About how do we make a student belong to a university? So could we use Graduate Plus, whatever that may be, to create some sort of connectedness? Can we use it to ensure that students develop a sense of capability? They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, they know they have the opportunity to develop this sort of thing around academic competence. Can we build it into things like our academic writing programs and those types of things? Can we, obviously fitting very well with employability, can we start to make sure students start to develop a sense of purpose as early as we can when they arrive at the university? Can they start to see where they're heading to? Give them that purpose, so perhaps they they remain committed to their programs for a longer period of time. And then clearly, can we also give them that sense of resourcefulness, the ability to do this, the ability to take advantage of the types of things we were trying to do. And through that, and through working with staff, but also through a new approach to working, through a new approach of working with staff, could we develop a sense of culture here, a sense of actually everything is about building, about looking at your skills, looking at the personal development of students. And I think that's where our journey was starting to lead us. What that meant was that when we first started to think about it, we started to join these two bits together. This stuff around first year experience, this stuff about transition and belonging. We started building that into a program that might then also move on to looking at students' employability skills. So the Graduate Plus program started to shape, and we started to think, well, what are the types of activities we could create? Could we actually, at a very early level, at level 4, as they're almost walking through the door, could we start to think about making or rewarding students for undertaking activities that we know do them good, but that they may think is really dull or very boring, or actually they don't see the purpose of it. So, for example, the library induction, or the first meeting with your personal tutor, or make sure you take part in Welcome Week, or join a club or society, are the things we can start to reward students for, which are very much sort of the attendance, just participation piece, that we can start to ensure that if they take part in those things, they start to generate that sense of belonging, that sense of connectedness, that sense of I'm somewhere where people know me and value me. So we start to look at that potential of some sort of retention type activities around there, but also welcoming students into the broader university rather than just their silo of their particular program. And then also, but within that, can we also then start to think about that purpose piece, start to sow the seeds of where are they going with their future? Are they looking to work in particular careers? Do they actually know what types of careers they might move into, and can we start to think about those types of things? So we were looking at those types of activities and starting to shape our program. So this graph we started to use from a very early point, saying actually, first of all, we're developing a sense of community, a sense of belongingness with our students by getting people to participate in activities, but then we're going to ramp up that stuff around employability, about employment skills, but also then start to think about, give it that real local focus of actually it's about me as a student and how can I as a person develop through this time, rather than we had a number of debates, shall I say, about the word employability, and Leslie's laughing next to me now, because I'm not a big fan of the word employability, I have to be honest, because it suggests that, well, from my perspective, it suggests that the reason we're here is to make people employable, or make people go into jobs. Well, actually, a lot of what we're trying to do is to focus around how does a student develop, and can we empower students and give them the opportunity to design their own futures through participating in whatever activities are available. And I think that's the sort of the focus we were looking at. So what did we come up with in the early days? We created an extracurricular awards framework, which some may recognize as, we have bronze to a gold offer, although some people have talked about platinum in the past as well, and where it might go to, we don't know. But what we want to do was create this awards framework, which would recognize those employability or life skills that our students develop within and outside the university through their life-wide experiences. And I use that word advisedly, life-wide experiences. I'm very taken with the work of Norman Jackson and colleagues around life-wide experiences and about how we recognize all the other activities that students are involved in as well as their curriculum at universities. When I'm being slightly provocative around the university and elsewhere, I talk about the death of the full-time student, and about how are we really sure our full-time student still exists at this university. if we know so many of our students live out in the community, are working substantial hours, there'll be another substantial proportion who have caring responsibilities. What is the position of the university in a student's life nowadays? And how, as a university, can we recognise the vast range of skills and opportunities and activities that students participate in beyond the campus walls? And I suppose that's one of the things we were looking at with within that piece around life-wide experiences. But clearly also we were starting to think about activities we could design that would take people beyond their, I suppose, stress and challenge, beyond their comfort zone. And yeah, certainly this university hasn't got a great reputation or history of participating in things like Erasmus and study abroad and about how can we offer new life-wide experiences for students. We also wanted to think about building on existing excellent practice. When we went out and spoke to a lot of program teams, and I'd go out and do presentations to schools, and Leslie would as well, school teams and faculty teams, we often said to people, this is repackaging a lot of what we're trying to do here. You're doing a lot of great stuff on particular programs or within career services or whatever. The problem for the students is they don't know where it is. They didn't know it exists. If you're in the business faculty and somebody's got a chief executive Tesco and they're going into the engineering faculty, how do you find out about it? How do you know about it? We wanted to provide, we talked at some points about providing the glue for the university, somewhere where students and staff would find out about the extra stuff that is going on. And I think that's one of the things we're still moving towards and hoping to progress on. Clearly we wanted to look at how we might engage students in ways, and we've had some success in that and some failures in that, I would suggest. I was very taken with some of the work that we'd seen in the States, where they looked at building programs like this around specific memorable events throughout the calendar year. It's almost like providing that scaffolding piece, so that there would be big bang exciting events which students would go to and might actually not connect with learning, but actually would be the thing that would catch their glance or pop up in their mind. I want to go along and find out what they're doing in the Graduate Plus office, because those people do some really strange things now and again, and actually it might capture my imagination, or it might ensure that I can access something new. But we're also very, as I say, very keen to move away from just a purely employability agenda to actually an agenda which is focused around on the student and about them designing their future. So what we created was, in the first instance, and I say, and this is, as I will continue to say, and Leslie will continue to say, this is definitely work in progress, and we've had some great successes. And we've had some I wouldn't say horrendous disappointments, but we're learning as we go. And so we decided to focus on, we've been going since September last year, and we were given the remit by the university to focus on the first year experience this year and really delve into how we might excuse me, how we might support those students in that belonging piece, but also then start to upskill them. And the interesting bit is, once actually we started to develop this, obviously you can't create boundaries and you can't create walls to students hearing about it. So now we have final years, second years, postgraduates, PhD students, all sorts of students just seeing actually the opportunities that this can offer them and wanting to take part. So whilst we might have started with the idea in last year of focusing on first year, we had to go beyond that. But the principle is that we've developed through the sort of student journey for our first year students is about engaging them from the earliest possible point. So even before the student has started at this university, in September, Graduate Plus contacted them and suggested they might want to undertake a personal development test online through a web link called Potentially. And the Potentially guys are fabulous and would welcome anybody who wants to contact with them, and we'd happily share that information as well. But it's a really nice visual tool which suggests to a student where their strengths are, but also where their weaknesses might be. And what we wanted to do was have that as almost the first discussion point for when a student came to university. So when they had their first meeting with their personal tutor, I mean, we've all been there as personal tutors. The student comes in and the first thing we say is, well, tell me a bit about yourself. Well, actually, the student doesn't need to do that anymore. They almost hand over this piece of paper and says, this is the type of person I am. This is what I think I'm good at. This is where I think what can you do about my weaknesses? How are you going to improve me? And this is where we provide some of that Graduate Plus information. But as I said, we also then start to look as well about throughout this first year, types of activities we could undertake and build. So actually students would latch on to it, and we created some of these memorable events. We did a really nice thing at with colleagues at Aston University, who have a low carbon challenge for their second year students, and we integrated that with what we were trying to do, and that resulted in a very nice activity going on at, as you see here, at the NEC, where there's about, I'm going to get my figures wrong now, but I think there's about 3,000 students there, wasn't there, from across the two universities, sharing this in this low carbon event. Again, opportunity for students to hear national politicians, but also personalities talking about things around sustainability, but also enable them to, as mixed groups, to work with students from our university, but also from other universities, to look at things, to start to think about how they might engage in a broader activities, but also how they might use it to build some of this Graduate Plus profile we're talking about. We also put on some strange things, you know, we put on a fire walking seminar, which I know some of my colleagues at Manchester are very keen on. We built on this firewalking seminar, and the firewalking seminar was really interesting because it's about building confidence levels, but also it's about challenging students and about thinking about who they are as a person and are they willing to take on board these things. And these became, I think we've run this 3 or 4 times now, haven't we? And it's a really nice focal point for students to start thinking about what they might do, but it also gives a focus for the types of events we're trying to develop. So we've been going now for about, as it says here, first 30 weeks. We've got a really nice, and I think this is very important, and probably Leslie will talk about it in a second, a very nice but also very visible home. Within one of our new buildings, so that students who pass through almost have to walk past it. That's given us some really interesting data for that particular faculty, and which we'll share shortly. We've built a very nice website, which I say you've got access to, so you can have a quick look at. But it's been quite encouraging in this first year, in that now as I say, the figures are there, but we're aiming to have about 5,000 students, well, hopefully 6,000, because I keep pushing Leslie, 5,000 or 6,000 students registered within the site. Now, for the first 6 months or so, I'm pretty pleased with that. Clearly, the issue for us there is about conversion. It's all well and good, and I'm sure Leslie will share some. It's all well and good for people to register and start to participate online and undertake activities online, or actually go to sessions. But actually, it's about that progress to those award status. Can we make them start to really think about the skills that they're developing? Can we get them to really start to think about higher level skills that they might utilize at some other point? So we've got 4,500 students registered at the moment. Over 2,500 that have done this potentially self-development tool, excuse me, which we hope actually they'll go back to. I quite like them to think that actually in the second year and the third year on their courses, they'll go back and say, how have I changed? How have I improved? It's almost a bit of the learning gain message there. You know, how am I changing throughout my time? We don't have any language courses at this university. So what we did was we purchased a license with Rosetta Stone to offer, I think it's 24 online languages free for all students through Graduate Plus. So actually students can now register and study a language online, which might help us again with those other agendas we talked about, study abroad, Erasmus, whatever that might be. And initially we've got, well, at the moment we've got 380, but Leslie will tell me that's now gone up by 20 again. It's going up all the time. So obviously got me a new figure. Oh no, 527 hasn't gone up by 20. It's gone up by 100 and whatever, 47. So students are rapidly starting to work through the awards system. And we also have this opportunity through our Graduate Plus portal So as soon as you've signed up, we can then start to send out messages about all the other great things that are going on across the university and or in the community. And that's something I'd want to come back to. You know, how can we use this as part of a civic engagement agenda within the university? How can we use it to support volunteering and charities and those are some of the things we're starting to look at as well. So, faculty picture. As you say, you can see the one highlighted in a, whether that orange or is that brown, I'm not really sure, but whatever colour it is, that's where the Graduate Plus home is in our business law and social sciences. Now, it might be because you might say it's because actually the nature of the business law, social science students might make them more interested in employability. I don't necessarily believe that, but the fact is that's where the home is. That's where all the students from BLSS will walk past every single day, and therefore perhaps they're more likely to drop in. So it's a lesson for us, is that this needs to be in the face of students. How are we going to make sure that it's embedded within our health faculty, our computing and engineering faculty, our arts faculty? Do we need to do more stuff which is about going out there? And so that's clearly something for us to think about and develop, but it's quite a stark message from this data. And therefore it shows throughout the data that actually the engagement of business law and social sciences students is higher across the board. But actually the participation across the other faculties is fairly encouraging as well. You know, you could probably by the end of the year we'll have 1,000 from each faculty participating, and that for us is very encouraging. So I think I'm wrapping up fairly shortly, and I'm going to hand over to Leslie, who's going to talk about how it works on a day-to-day basis. But one of the great things is we have been going out. There's been a lot of work around selling this to staff as well as to students. There's probably more work actually selling to staff than to students, because students seem to recognise what the value of participating is. But actually, staff have been brilliant around the university because they've seen why we're doing it, and they haven't. I think quite a few staff will initially see it as a threat. But when we start to be quite open and talk about, you know, in essence, a lot of this about repackaging, we want to make sure that you get a really good student turnout when you've got an activity going on, or actually we might be able to find a small bit of funding to help you develop something, or have you tried working, we'll provide you with the connections to talk to people in a different school or different faculty. The benefits for staff have been readily apparent, and maybe it's because I led the initiative initially, but I don't get many staff coming up to me and saying that's a load of rubbish or there's no point to that. So I think the message is getting out there and clearly there's a lot of people who we still need to work on, but you know, for the first 6 months, I'm pretty happy where we're at in terms of getting staff engagement in this. We have run these festivals or Graduate Plus festivals, whatever, and they've done really well. Certainly the second one which we ran was very enthusiastically supported by students, and over 3,000 students participated in that one. We've looked at other ways of introducing Graduate Plus into activities, and whether it be through podcasts or actually supporting particular degrees. One of the things we're really interested in is the nature of our particular university is looking at how curriculum integration, and we've done one pilot with our criminology course, looking at how we can utilize it within professional development modules. Are there ways in which we can tailor extracurricular activities and recognition of awards to particular activities within particular programs? And I think that's probably the future of where we need to go here. And certainly one of the things we're going to be looking at is development of credit-bearing modules to support our activities here as well. But also we're looking at future collaborations with Aston or other places, and the ways in which we use marketing. We need to get more sophisticated about that. I challenged, excuse me, Leslie at one point to could we do a buy one get one free type of approach, and for which she rapidly said no, and she was quite right. But are there things we should be doing in different ways to engage with students? And one of the key things for me around that is about senior student mentors and how we utilize them, and how Graduate Plus builds a student army to take the message out to students and to work with students in developing new activities. So I'm now going to hand over to Leslie, who's going to take you through the real detail of how this works.
Hello. Hi there. Thanks for that, Luke. That was great. As you can probably imagine, we do a lot of discussion-based meetings whereby we talk about where we are, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. Pretty similar to the student journey, really. I'm going to pick up just on the comments that we are getting from students, because my brief was everything that obviously Luke has provided thus far, but also that sense of, can they articulate, can they reflect, and when they get out there in the world of work, are they able to sort of look at their competencies in terms of how that reflects for them within the job market and beyond. I'm just bringing up the early comments that some of the students have provided. We have got such a rich source of qualitative data from students, which have been prompted by a whole host of different ways within the awards, and I'll go through that, but we've just put a few things up. These are comments, I have to say, from the very early days, and since then we've had sort of many more deep and meaningful comments, and I'll talk and explain what that's about as I go through. One of the big issues we had was about branding. As you can imagine, you know, we were tasked with this, we all got very excited, there was a whole host of different people involved, and as I would imagine most large institutions, there is that sort of corporate branding that you have to consider. And we were very strong in the view of saying, look, this is an award program that we want to generate for students and actually make sure the brand was sort of quite high profile. And we did have a lot of challenges with this, I have to say, and this was the first thing that we had to deal with. However, that said, we got round it by talking to our marketing team, and, you know, so long as it wasn't, we didn't classify it as a brand, we could call it an icon. So we called it an icon. We called it an icon, and we've got this, and we've got a suite of different visuals that we can use, and actually this is plastered all over the university in lots of different ways. So within that, we then started to develop where we were going. Clearly, it's about, you know, students knowing that they're coming here. This is 3 years to sort of really build on that part of being a member of a community of 24,000 students, 2,500 members of staff, all with a network links. So we were sort of very much about saying this has to be successful for the individual students, and they are the drivers. So we linked it to sort of a profile similar to D of E, which most students who come in on board are sort of saying, oh, I get that, I understand it. We link them to the attributes, as Luke has mentioned, and it's very individualized. So again, they're driving it, not us, and the outcome is about reflection, articulation of skills and competencies throughout the 3-year process. We had a lucky coincidence, really, serendipity, call it what you like. We linked with our colleagues in BCU Advantage, who are the front-facing element of our employer links. So we were sort of aware that they had quite a swanky website. At that moment in time, we were still delving and developing the award. How is it going to look? And it seemed to make sense to work with their IT people and have sort of a bit of a pipeline. So the pipeline is that we have piggybacked on the back of their website. We've developed our website hoping that our students will go through and be the front end to the employers as we move forward, which was great. We know where we're going, we know where the drivers are. That said, it also gave us a little bit of flexibility of how we linked the award in terms of a matrix approach. Now you can imagine sort of within the steering group we'd all got our own opinions, our own ideas, and it took us a little time to sort of get a sense of, do we want an award program which just basically ticks off what students do? Or do we want them to be a little bit more deep and meaningful? And I think we've probably got the best of both worlds, to be honest. The matrix that's in front of you is exactly actually what students see. That is their matrix. It's not about staff seeing it. It's completely their individualized profile, and you'll notice that it's split into 3, bronze, silver and gold, and the Attend, Explore and Discover links to exactly what Luke is saying about that sense of get involved, you know, dip your toes in, even if you don't like it, just come along, get a sense of what that did for you or not, but more importantly, start to link with the employability attributes. We've got them, how are we going to use them? And what's been really interesting is how students start seeing that. You know, we have ADM students for arts, design and media who take on the creative mantle really well. Business, law and social science, it took them a little while to think, am I creative? Boy, you are creative. And we actually helped them to sort of see how they were creative and how they took issues with problem solving and risk taking and how they dealt with that and how they could use that in a creative problem solving attribute way. So it's allowed them to sort of see themselves as a more holistic graduate of the future. As we go through it, we've got the experience, test and build, which is the stuff that is about, okay, we use the STAR technique. It's that sense of you really do need to reflect and articulate, and we need to know what competencies you're using. The way the system operates is that we have, I cannot tell you, we have a shed load of activities in all of the different elements. So we are growing a real strong bank of evidence of everything that everybody does. Luke said this isn't just about Grad Plus, this is about everybody in the university that does some amazing stuff that is being centralized, and we now have a database of all this stuff on tap. We also have a database of how many students are doing what. So the analytics of it is quite acute, really. So again, that's what the students get. They have to do 24 different activities. This is the slide you're seeing at the moment was just to give staff a bit of an idea of how a student might fill that grid. I have to say this is an early incarnation. It is much more vibrant now because we've developed it, and an example of that is when doing some of the activities we've been involved in. Students have come to us and said, you know, I'm involved in this. How does that work for Grad Plus? Well, actually, that's a silver. And I'll give you a real key example. We had 2 students who were involved in the Fixers.org program, which is a national charity that gives students a voice. Both came from a variety of different backgrounds, and it was their platform. They actually submitted that as a bronze. It was no way a bronze because one of them was actually talking to policymakers within her youth service, had a promo on Central TV. It was gold. And actually it allowed us to have the dialogue to sort of say, okay, this is amazing. You've got some amazing strengths and competencies here. Let's put that onto the list. Let's make sure that other students know what fixes are. And actually they then contributed to one of our activity weeks as presenting what they'd done within that. So actually lots of win-wins on that. But you can see how the profile starts to develop for a student. In the early days, we also looked at, some of you may be familiar with Abintegro as a site. Fantastic site, very careers focused. We did look at this as our first idea of transporting the award. As we started to want to link it with the attributes, we recognised that we needed something a little different, but we recognised also that there was a great benefit of having this site as a resource. So instead of just having it as a careers resource, we actually sort of rebranded it as a Graduate Plus information portal. So it's got all the career stuff, it's got all sector knowledge which is up to date on a regular basis, but we've also brought in all our services within that. So this is your 24/7 portal within Grad Plus that never sleeps. So we've got careers, we've got learning and library, Centre for Academic Success, SU, and we've also got elements for if students are struggling with, maybe they've got one silver to do, they can actually pull down an activity from Abintegro and actually work through an online learning. So with Abintegro, we found it's given us a broader reach in lots of different ways. It's got single sign-on, as the Potentially, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, but it also has really good, strong analytical data. Bringing us to the Potentially, Luke alluded to this earlier. Potentially is based on Young and Belbin. What we like about it is a really nice piece of kit. We've probably all seen a lot of different packages that are out there. The student feedback has been incredibly positive. It allows them to work through this in 15 minutes. It allows them to actually really sort of see themselves in a different light, and it as Luke said, it provides an opportunity for that discussion with their personal tutor, but not just the personal tutor. That could also be the careers team, that could be Centre for Academic Success. So it allows the student to own themselves in terms of that self-awareness tool, and then start to use it as they feel appropriate. Just to give you another example of some of the things we have from Potentially. Here's the bell bin. So again, you know, this might be the first sort of scenario that they see in this team role preference. So again, we can link that to activities either from the careers within their course, and start to get them to think about that in relationship to themselves. Flipping back between Potentially and AB Integro, the other big plus point in keeping with AB Integro is every Friday we are able to send out a newsletter. We can populate that newsletter with sector stuff which is generic to what's happening in the sector, jobs that are available that AB Integro provide. But actually what we've found is that we put on all sorts of different events. For instance, we've just signed up with a filmmaking summer project, so we will promote it there. We've also, looking at focus groups, we'll promote it there. It allows us to consistently nudge students with a Friday 2 o'clock roundup of what's been going on, but also what's coming up. For instance, this week we've got a BBC Masterclass. We will promote it there, and they'll know that that is actually going to be promoted there too, which is just great. Luke mentioned about Rosetta Stone. Again, easy. This is a really easy sell to students. They get it. They link it clearly with Global, but they don't have to. It's entirely up to them. And actually, this has been a buzz because we've also offered this to some of our staff and as early adopters. So the conversation between staff and students is also key. I'm doing it, why don't you? Type of thing goes on. So actually, that's been a really interesting piece of work. And it's a very flexible piece of kit. Students can go on at any level. They can actually do 1, 2, 3 courses as they feel fit, and some students have said that, you know, they flip between 2 because they just want to sort of brush up on one and then we'll go into another one. Okay, I'm just going to pass over to Luke now just to wrap up.
Steve is sending me frantic messages saying finish quickly so we can do some questions. That's all right. No. Yeah, just to conclude very quickly. Clearly, we're working through this, and it's whilst we're enjoying it immensely, it does provide some challenges. But also, we need to look at sustainability beyond. Can we really work with 12, 15,000 students over the coming years? How do we need to change? It continues to challenge our assumptions. One of the lovely things is, for example, a couple of months ago, we made available an online accountancy program for students. Now, we were assuming that business law and social science students would be the only people who would take this up. The fact is, we had fine arts students, nurses, graphic communication students, film students, all sorts of people participating in an online accountancy degree. And I suppose that, in a way, that reflects, that challenges those assumptions of, you know, the type of person who will want to do this. Well, actually, a lot of people who, students who are at our place might be thinking about self-employment. So actually, there's some interesting pieces there for us to think about. Yes, we need to look at quality and the quantity of what we do and continue to improve that. And that's always going to be the challenge for us to maintaining currency, but also, you know, we need to make something that students and staff are proud of participating in, and we'll continue to develop that and see how we can better involve employers. And what we're moving to is, just to conclude here, is to talk about, actually, you know, these are the types of targets we're looking at. We're looking at how we, yes, we want increasing numbers, but we want to look at how we celebrate what we're doing. You know, this university, as I suspect many universities, isn't very good at celebrating, but also how do we recognise that participation? one of the things it is helping us with is looking at how we might implement the HERE at the university, and that's something we've been taking forward in the last few weeks to make sure Graduate Plus can provide that data for the HERE. But also, you know, how can we extend the offer now, utilising Graduate Plus and utilising some of the activities? How can we extend, I suppose, the curriculum offer to the university and to our students? Can we look at developing, you know, that whole area of the summer period, and how might we utilise that? We have no tradition here really of running summer camps and those types of activities. Can we utilise those, provide, I know, online, provide language courses perhaps for students, and provide some sort of credit bearing offer? How would that link back to their awards and their degrees? And then finally look at how we might better engage with employers, and look at that whole area of how can we recruit students to Graduate Plus, and how can we make sure that they buy into it from a very early point. So I'm going to shut up now and hand back over to Steve, who will probably want to manage the rest of the session. Thank you very much for listening anyway.
Luke, Leslie, thank you so much. That was fab. And I'm going to shut it because I'm sure there are going to be some questions. So Luke, we've got a question from Sharon. How do you propose to gain HEA accreditation of the award?
The HEA have an approval framework, which I'm sure your HEA institutional contact could provide you with their sort of accreditation process. It looks, I mean, we were looking at the form we had to complete a couple of weeks ago, and they're now looking at providing, I believe, accreditation of all types of activities. And so I suggest you have a word with your HEA contact around that. But it looks like something, well, certainly something we can do and something we want to do, just because I want to ensure, and the reason we're doing it is I want to ensure continued buy-in from staff and show that actually this award has some rigor behind it, so that staff and students can hopefully see the value of it.
Thanks, Luke. Any more questions?
This is one for Leslie, probably.
Mark says, how do you assess the individual components that make up bronze, silver and gold?
Yeah, there's an interesting question. Just alluding to the fact that sort of the bronze is very much a plug and play type of scenario. So literally it's a drop down menu. They come to Welcome Week. It's literally one line that we're expecting as to why they come to Welcome Week and how they've linked it to an attribute. So it's getting them to understand the system, getting them to understand what Graduate Plus is about and how the framework is for them. When we go to silver and gold, we're using the STAR technique in terms of competency-based questions. So, for instance, they've got 8 actual activities that they would need to provide, 2 for each attribute, and they're asked competency-based questions within that, and they are then given a bit of a framework. Some students have never seen STAR technique before, so we give them a framework as to what we're looking for, and we're using it as a review process. It's not learning outcome. This is about actually for them to be able to sort of develop how they can reflect and articulate when they go into the world of work or wherever they're going in a very concise and appropriate manner. We do the same for gold, but there's different questions for each. And we are also looking at assessment type opportunities whereby we're bringing in employers. So again, this is that stuff that we are developing as we go. Luke and I have all sorts of conversations about what should be automated, what should be as is, about, you know, what are we trying to do here. If we have students that get through bronze, silver and gold and they can't reflect and articulate, this hasn't worked for them. So it's about that sense of making sure that it has the value and the focus that we need. Does that answer your question? Yes, thank you.
Just to unmute myself, we've got another question from Jill. How did you get the evaluation data, the qualitative data, and have you got some longer term impact measures in mind?
Sorry, am I responding to the question that's coming up, or? Sorry,
Looking
Steve.
at Jill's.
Yeah.
Looking at Jill's question.
Yeah. Okay. We've got qualitative and quantitative data, to be honest. We get the qualitative data very easily from students when they've actually completed an activity. They are telling us, well, what did it do for them? They've actually put that on in their own words, actually against their award. So they're driving it, and actually we're getting some honest and authentic data, because it's not about an evaluation form. They're linking it to their own award, and they're having to think and consider, well, I went to Welcome Week, I'm linking it to global activity, why am I linking it to that? So that's where sort of that comes from a qualitative point of view. The quantitative data, we're actually, as I say, working with our colleagues in research, innovation and enterprise, and we are looking at all the performance data at the moment. We've got a rich source of quantity, we've got figures coming out of our ears on lots of different ways. Only today I've just been able to sort of get an idea of how many students are participating in different activities over the period of time. Now again, that's some of the central services stuff, that's some of the activities that we do within a dedicated week. That is also some of the stuff that faculty staff do on a variety of different bases. So again, we're able to sort of pull this information off, and currently working with performance and planning to provide some rich qualitative and quantitative data to faculty staff.
Thanks, Leslie. I've got a question from Marie, which is, could you tell us a bit more about the sort of activities you offer to help students reflect upon and articulate their experiences gained in the workplace?
Okay, there's a distinction between the activities and what we're asking them to do. So for instance, in Bronze, as I mentioned, it's all very, it's very quick, it's vibrant, it's sort of lots of fun stuff, but also lots of stuff that they do as a matter of course. So that's the stuff that allows them to understand that they are with a big university, that there's a massive amount of networks, and that sense of being involved. The stuff that sort of goes into that articulate their experience is very much about the silver and gold. So we'll work with organisations like Frontrunner Common Purpose that do a 3-day leadership programme. Students that have been on that come off, and the feedback has just been out of this world. So not only do they actually feedback on that course, but they then link it to their Graduate Plus award. So there's two lots of sort of articulation and feedback going on there, but when they come to us, in using the STAR technique, we actually get them to drill down on the competencies. So they tell us that they've been on that course, they link it to the drop-down activity, then there's a competency-based question of which they choose the competency that they've actually developed the most, and they use that particular activity to draw on that 250-word review process. We then review it, so we've got back-end stuff. And again, going back to conversion and sustainability, there's a lot of work that goes on. We've just secured half a day a week with a careers colleague who is also helping us to review. So again, it is very much about guidance. It is very much about them actually using stuff that we know is being used in the workplace, but also not just about STAR technique. We also need to look at strengths-based interviewing, assessment centre in the broadest possible way. So these are things for the future, I would say.
That's fab. Thank you very much. Folks, any more questions before we knock it on the head and have some lunch? It doesn't look like it. In which case, can I just say to Leslie and Luke, thank you so much for an interesting lunchtime webinar. It's even better than it was when I came to see you to find out about it in the first place. So really impressive. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Well, Steve, thanks very much. I'll pass that on to Luke as well. Thanks all.